All right, sixth graders, let's go through this cell analogy project here. I think this video is really important because it's going to kind of walk you through and try to answer some of the questions that you might have of what you're supposed to do on this project. So let me start by saying that I'm giving you multiple days to do this project. So I want you to use your time wisely and put the effort in to make a really cool looking project here at the end. All right. So let's take a look at this. Up at the top here, I have the video for you that you're already watching, so you're good. There's the link right there. Underneath it, this is where you're going to turn your project in when you're done. Okay, and you're going to see here in a moment, you're going to have choices for what it is that you want to do for your project, but no matter what your choice is, it's going to have a link, whether that's a link to a Google Doc of some sort or to something from a different website or a wee video or something like that. It's going to have a link. Okay, and that's where you're going to copy and paste your link in, and then you'll hit your turn in button to go ahead and turn that into me through Google Classroom. All right, so let's start by just kind of going through and talking about analogies. So the reason we're doing this project is that last week, when you went through, and many of you did a some more, and some of you did the reading guide part of just learning about this different parts of a cell, the cell organelles. You've now had 2 different videos of class notes and notes that you've taken down of all the different parts of a cell. So now instead of just kind of the easy way of just kind of copying that information down and recalling it, now you're going to have to apply it to something. And that's where the analogies come into. Okay, so this is going to be harder because you really need to understand what the job or function, as I say, of that organelle is. And so if you do know that really well, then you'll be able to probably quite easily make some analogies. If you're struggling with those a little bit, I would go back and make sure you're using your notes to help you so that you understand what the function is of each of the organelles or the parts of the cell. All right, so intro here. I'm going to just read this like I would be doing this if we were in regular class because I think it just makes it a lot easier. All right, so I'm right here. An analogy is something used in language to give a comparison between 2 things. Typically, the purpose of an analogy is for clarification or explanation. Analogies are usually found in everyday language or while reading, but there's actually an official way to write analogies. In fact, this format is used for some types of standardized testing. So like some IQ tests, some ACTs and SETs, if you've ever heard of those, sometimes they put in analogies in there to kind of to see how well you know language and vocab. Here's an example. I'm right here, this third paragraph here. Here's an example of how to write the analogy. Okay, so here's the analogy. Dog is to puppy as cat is to kitten. And the formal way to write the analogy is right here. Dog, single colon, puppy, 2 colons, cat, single colon, kitten. And the way you would read that is dog is to puppy as cat is to kitten. That's the analogy, okay? Analogies can be common in science. I'm here now. Analogies can be common in science to help show a relationship, to compare, or even more commonly, to explain or clarify a concept. And that's kind of what you guys are doing here. I use analogies in the class notes for parts 1 and 2 to help clarify the function of the cell and the cell organelles. Now it's your turn. So, for instance, I usually put as the last bullet point on most of those slides about the organelles, I made it a comparison to something, okay, like a control center, or a highway, or a cleanup crew, whatever it might have been. All right. My example that I'm using here to help you guys, we'll use the analogy that a cell is like a factory. So here's the example to start you out. So organelles are to a cell as parts of a factory are to a factory. Or the official way to write the analogy is here. Organelles are to a cell as parts of a factory are to a factory. And I even have a picture here that kind of is the analogy. And so it has these different things going on, and it's kind of just showing you what is happening in those pictures, and that here are some of the organelles. Okay, so now it's your turn. I think I just put that in there twice. That's all right. It's definitely your turn now. You need to create your own analogy for a cell. It starts with an overall theme, like my example, a cell is like a factory. Then, all of your analogies need to fit within that theme. So here's another example for me. The cell's nucleus is like the factory's boss, or here's the correct way to write the analogy. The nucleus is to the cell as the boss is to the factory. Okay? So hopefully that gives you a couple good examples and really gets your mind starting to think. You can't use factory, obviously. That's mine. You got to use something else. All right, so how are you going to display this? Well, this is where some choice comes in. I have 5 different choices that you can choose from to put your analogies in to do this project. There's a little explanation after each one. I'm just going to quickly go through them here. So Thinglink is a website. Some of you might have used it in social studies or in a tech class or something like that, or maybe you're just familiar with it. It's really user-friendly, easy to use. You could upload a picture of something, and then you can put in these little things that are like dots or markers. And then when someone clicks on that marker, it can expand and open up into like a text box, and you can type in the information, like your analogies and what the function of the organelle is. Google Draw, kind of the same idea where you'd be able to insert a picture or upload a picture into Google Draw, because that's something that you can do in Google Draw. And then you'd be able to insert text boxes and things to write your analogy and explain how your picture represents the cell. Okay. Google Slides. So you could create a slideshow with pictures, and maybe every single slide was a new organelle with a new analogy written there for it as well. So that's another option. Poster board. So if some of you have poster board and you want to draw and use markers and crayons, you can do that. Here's the only catch. The only catch is that you can't come to school and turn it into me. So for me to be able to grade it, there has to be one more step, and that's the video part. So you would have to like maybe put it up on the wall or something, or have someone hold it, and then almost like you would be presenting to a class, you would present to the camera. And so that you would explain what your project is. You would probably go through and read through your analogies for me and the functions, just in case it was hard for me to see them, depending on how much you had to squeeze them in and write small on a poster board, so that I can still grade it even though I don't physically have the poster board. All right. And then the last one, number 5, is the easiest choice. It is just a simple Google Doc. All right. Now, it's the easiest choice because it doesn't require pictures or anything else besides just your analogies and the functions of the organelles. But you do need to know, okay, if you choose this option, it is easier than the other ones. And because of that, it's not going above any type of expectation. And so when I think of earning an A for a project, you got to go above. And so you cannot get higher than a B by doing option number 5. And there's nothing wrong with a B. And it's not like you're being a bad person for picking number 5. I'm the one that created this and put it in there. So obviously it is a legitimate option. But just know it's not as hard. And so the reward back is that you just don't earn as many points. And so the most points you can earn would get you a B if you choose option 5. Okay? Okay. Here are some requirements. All right. And then I have a rubric underneath. So I'm going to kind of jump back and forth here between both of them to walk you through this. All right, so the very first thing you have to do is you have to pick an animal cell or a plant cell. All right, so that's going to make it easier. Just pick one of them, an animal cell or a plant cell, and use the organelles that are just in that cell. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, you need a theme. Like mine was the factory, right? So a theme, and then those analogies need to make sense for all your organelles and the functions. All right, and so that's right here, theme and number of analogies. And here's where you could have different earnings for your points. So you need to make sure that it makes sense, it shows some creativity, and then I give 10 or more analogies as the minimum if you're shooting for an A. Okay? Meets the expectation, which is in that B range, is 7 to 9 analogies. And then if you're less than 7, okay, then you fall into that below expectation part of the grading. Okay? Okay. Analogies that demonstrate correct function for the organelle. So that's also important in there, making sure that you can't say that the cell is like the endoplasmic reticulum is like the control center. Well, that's not correct, because the endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, doesn't control the cell's activities. That's the nucleus's job. So that would be incorrect. Even though your analogy might be okay, it's not matching the correct function. So make sure you get that right too. Okay. Third thing up here, analogies that demonstrate the correct, I already did. Here, sorry. Fourth one, analogies need to be written in the correct format as explained up in the intro that I did up there, okay? So that's here, written analogies. Oh, here's the content too. I'm sorry, I skipped that. So when we talked about how they analogies to demonstrate the correct function of the organelles, here's that part of the rubric. So if you do all of them, that exceeds the expectation. Most of them meets it. Below the expectation is that few of them demonstrate correct function of the organelle. Okay. The next one was the written analogies in that formal format that I showed you with the single colon and the double colon. So if you do that for all of them, you're exceeding the expectation. You meet the expectation if you're able to do that for most of them. If you don't do it in the right format, you're below the expectation. Okay, and then the last thing is the wow factor, and that's what I put up here. Wow factor. Be creative and make your final product look awesome. That's why it's like in quotes. I'm just calling it our wow factor. When I open it up, I just want to be like, wow, this is great. Okay, and it's going to show creativity. It's going to show that you put time and effort into this, that you cared about doing a good job on it. In fact, it's going to look so good that it would be one of those projects that I would ask you if I could use as an example to show kids next year, right? That's how good it should be. All right. Now you can still have some wow factor that's not exceeding the expectation, but it's meeting the expectation. That would be that it's still creative, it's neat, it's organized, it's thought out. Okay, it includes some pictures and some pretty cool things, some other things that are pretty cool. Okay, so that is still some wow factor. And then below the expectation, to be quite honest, that's kind of what happens when you do a Google Doc. You know, it's not going to have a lot of wow. It could have all the science in there, which is why you would get a B, but it's not showing that you're going beyond, which is why the highest grade you can get is a B on there. Okay. Now be careful. Just because you don't pick number 5, okay, like let's say you pick number 3, Google Slides, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're guaranteed an A either, and that you're guaranteed to have great wow factor. You know, if you do a Google slide and there's no color and no pictures and it's like, you know, one analogy per slide and then maybe you put like a short definition of what the function is, I mean, that's just like doing the Google Doc, except you just did it on slides instead of in a Google Doc. So there wouldn't be wow factor either. So just be careful. Okay, wow factor just has to come from it looking awesome no matter which of these products you choose for your final product. Okay? Remember, I have office hours, so come in and see me for office hours. If you need clarification or some help, email me. If office hours don't work and you want to set up another time just to talk to me, we can always do that too. Just email me so that I know. And remember, when you're all done up at the top, very first page, this is where, again, you post your link. Copy and paste your link in. All right, have fun, and hopefully I get to see some pretty awesome projects here by the end of the week.